There are fires that do not blaze to burn, but to remind us that someone is still watching. This morning, before the door of my flower shop, before the smoke had dissipated, a small symbol had already settled silently in the palm of my hand, lines carved as thin as a scar of memory. I closed my eyes, letting my memory trace the smell of ash, the sound of shoes, the rhythm of breathing. 3 musical notes touched in silence, like a promise to change a name. Kale taught me, in the darkness, every trace speaks. Today, I will listen. I am no longer the bird in a golden cage. My life, which seemed to have been closed in an old book, now opened a new chapter with astonishing peace. For the past year, every morning when I woke up, I saw sunlight filtering through the small window of the house above Ethereal Bloom Flower Shop, where I cultivated new life, fresh fragrances, to soothe the deep wounds the city had etched upon me. Kai, my precious son, with dark eyes just like his father's, is my sunrise every day. He sleeps soundly in my arms, his breath steady and warm like an affirmation of life, of a future I fought to achieve. I often caress his soft hair, whispering fairy tales about talking flowers, about enchanted forests, stories without darkness, without danger, without names like thorn or blackwood. The flower shop, Ethereal Bloom, was like a wall separating this beautiful, fragile world from the terrifying memories still lurking somewhere in my mind. Each velvet rose petal, each pure white lily stem, carried a part of me, the part I had hidden, the part I wanted to protect. I personally arranged each bouquet, feeling each soft petal under my fingertips, smelling their faint fragrance. The scent of jasmine, mixed with a hint of cedar wafting from the old wooden shelves, had become my unique scent of the new life I had chosen. It was no longer the smell of cigarettes, leather, and blood. No longer the smell of Kael, of the golden cage I once inhabited. But peace, in my world, was merely a fragile illusion. It was like a beautiful mirror, but with just a small tremor, it would shatter. That morning, when the early mist had not yet fully cleared from the green leaves, I received a call, the panicked voice of the assistant reporting that my flower shop was on fire. My heart seemed to stop. My entire world suddenly spun. I ran in the cold drizzle of the early morning, ran with an extreme fear suffocating my chest. Kai was at home, safe. But Ethereal Bloom, my second home, a symbol of freedom and new beginnings, was being consumed by flames. When I arrived, thick black smoke columns still billowed into the sky, casting a gloomy haze over the entire neighborhood. The fire had been extinguished, but ashes were still scattered everywhere, and the acrid smell of burnt wood, of withered flowers, assailed my nose, evoking a terrifying obsession. That smell, it was like the smell of the explosion years ago, the smell of loss, of death. I stood silently amidst the ruins, feeling each cold gust of wind blowing through my damp hair, carrying fragments of memories. Tears streamed down my face, mixing with the cold raindrops on my cheeks. Amidst that chaos, my eyes caught something on the remaining wall of the flower shop. It wasn't a burn mark, nor peeling paint. It was a symbol. A soft, curving crescent moon, intricately intertwined with the letter T symbol, as if it had been carved with a sharp blade, not by fire. I moved closer, touching the cold carving. Every line, every angle, it was not accidental. It was like a message, a warning, or a promise. Immediately, my memory. That special ability Kael once called a blessing and a curse, activated. Images, sounds, even the smallest details, all appeared vividly as if they had just happened. I remembered an old notebook of Kael's, a mint green folder he had carefully hidden in a safe under the floor of the Thorn Tower penthouse. In it, there was a complex diagram of underground organizations, secret symbols, and I had seen this symbol. The crescent moon, symbolizing the Council of Shadows, and the letter T, Thorn's T. No, it couldn't be. Kael had disappeared. Blackwood had been destroyed. Or was I mistaken? I tried to breathe deeply, letting the smell of ash fill my lungs, letting the vivid sensations of the present pull me out of the violently swirling vortex of memories. Alara? A man's deep voice sounded from behind, pulling me out of my daze. I turned around. Agent Eli Ward. He had appeared. He stood there, his long black coat still beaded with raindrops, his eyes peering through his sunglasses, scrutinizing yet no less concerned. Eli, once a mysterious figure, had now become a familiar part of my fragile life. He was an interagency agent who had tracked Kyle and also the one who had helped me escape the troubles of the underworld. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice full of concern. He didn't say much, but every word he uttered carried weight, a caution characteristic of those who work in the shadows. I shook my head, my damp hair clinging to my cheeks. "No, not really." I pointed to the symbol on the wall. "This, do you see it?" Eli moved closer, bending down to examine it. He slowly removed his sunglasses, his dark brown eyes narrowing. "Just as I thought," he murmured, not to me, but to himself. "This isn't just a simple fire, Alara. It's a message." I looked at him, a sense of unease rising within me. "Do you know what it is?" Eli sighed, a faint wisp of white smoke escaping his lips in the cold air. "We're investigating a new network, or rather, a reconstructed version of Blackwood. After Richard's death, many pieces reassembled themselves. They are looking for a new patron, someone behind everything. Blackwood. That name was like a cold dagger, a deep scar in my memory. I had thought it was all over. I had believed that Kyle had taken that name and all his family's sins to his grave. But no. Kael's death, Richard Blackwood's death, seemed to be just a new beginning, a resurgence of something even more terrifying. "The patron?" I repeated, my voice trembling slightly. Eli looked at me, his eyes full of hidden meaning. "Yes. A mysterious, powerful figure who has been behind everything for a very long time. And we believe that the fire at your flower shop was not accidental. You, or rather, your past, is a crucial link in their plan." I swallowed hard, a chill running down my spine. A crucial link. I had once been a bird in a cage. I had once been a tool. I had once accepted my fate. But now, with Kai, I couldn't let anything drag me back into that abyss. Eli continued, his voice deeper. "Richard Blackwood may not be truly dead, or at least, his ideas are still alive. Some recent evidence suggests he might still be pulling strings from the shadows, or someone is acting in his name. No, it couldn't be. Blackwood not dead?" I remembered Kyle's desperate eyes when he spoke of having to destroy Blackwood, of his own sacrifice. Everything I believed in, everything I relied on, seemed to be crumbling. I looked at the symbol on the wall again, my fingers still lightly tracing the carving. Crescent moon, letter T. Eli followed my gaze. "Does it mean anything to you, Alara?" "With your memory?" I closed my eyes, trying to recall fragmented memories. Kale's notebook, complex hand-drawn diagrams, strange symbols. "Yes, I think so," I whispered. "It's like a map, a path, but I can't remember clearly." "You will remember," Eli said, his voice full of confidence. "And I need you to remember, this investigation involves both the Thorne and Blackwood families, and you too." Suddenly, amidst the lingering smoke from the burnt flower shop, amidst the now silent fire truck sirens, amidst the murmuring conversations of neighbors, I heard it. 3 musical notes. Gentle, resonant piano tones, echoing in the chaotic space, like a cold breeze sweeping through my mind. It wasn't a complete piece of music, just 3 notes, repeating hauntingly. C, G, C. Those 3 notes, they were never wrong. I flinched. Eli looked at me, puzzled. "Did you hear something?" I didn't answer. The whole world around me suddenly fell silent, only those 3 notes reverberating in my head. 3 notes Kale once used as a secret signal. A signal only he and I knew. A signal of life, of existence. He is alive? That question echoed in my mind, both a fragile glimmer of hope and an extreme fear. If he was alive, why didn't he contact me? Why did he let me believe he was dead? And if he was alive, that meant I still hadn't escaped his shadow, the shadow of the world he belonged to. The rain still fell, heavier now. My tears had dried, but within me, a new fire had been lit. A fire of curiosity, of longing, and of determination. Those 3 musical notes haunted me endlessly. C, G, C. They seeped into my sleep, entwined with my every thought, like an invisible thread pulling me back to the past, back to Kyle. Eli had invited me to a charity auction, saying it was an opportunity to find more clues about the re-emerging Blackwood network. I knew he was right. In the world of the powerful, lavish parties, glittering lights, often concealed the darkest secrets. I wore the black silk dress Kale once gave me, feeling the soft fabric glide against my skin, stirring long dormant emotions. The scent of jasmine and cedar still lingered on my body, but beneath that fragrance, I felt a new tension, a readiness to confront. Kai had been sent to my foster mother's house, safe. For me, every time I stepped out, facing these underground forces, was a trade-off, a risk. But I was no longer the weak woman waiting to be protected. I was Kai's mother. I had to protect my son, and that meant I had to find the truth myself. The auction took place at the city's most luxurious hotel, where dazzling crystal chandeliers illuminated splendid outfits and sparkling expensive jewelry. The clinking of champagne glasses, the excited chatter, all created a perfect picture of high society. But I knew, behind every polite smile, every cold gaze, lay a conspiracy, a calculation. This was the battlefield of the powerful, where silent underground wars unfolded. Eli met me in the lobby, dressed in a smart suit, looking at me with an unreadable expression. "You look beautiful, Elara," he said, his voice deep. "Be careful. Here, everyone wears a mask." I nodded, clutching my handbag tightly. I know. Amidst the unfamiliar faces, I sensed a distinct presence. A woman. She stood in the center of the room, drawing all eyes. Long black hair, sharp gray eyes, breathtakingly elegant demeanor. Maya Blackwood. That name immediately echoed in my head, along with the information Eli had told me. Richard Blackwood's cousin, who was seeking to revive the family's empire through legitimate, economic means. She was not merely a businesswoman. She was a symbol, a cold and cunning feminine power. I observed Maya from afar, my visual memory automatically recording every minute detail. The way she held her wine glass, the way she smiled politely, the way she controlled conversations with just a glance. She was a perfect opposite version of me. I chose love, she chose power. The auction began with solemn speeches. Maya Blackwood stepped onto the podium, the microphone almost swallowing her slender figure, but her voice resonated throughout the room, full of confidence and weight. "Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here tonight, not just to auction works of art, but to auction trust," she said, her gaze sweeping across every face in the audience. Trust in recreation, trust in rebuilding from the ashes, trust in cleansing the stains of the past, and ushering in a new era. Our Blackwood family has made mistakes, but we believe that after sin, there is always an opportunity for atonement, to rebuild trust through the genuine values of business and philanthropy. Her words sounded noble, but behind them, I sensed a cold current, an iron calculation. Rebuilding trust after family sin. She was talking about Richard. She was trying to cover up crimes with a philanthropic facade. Just then, the large screen behind the stage suddenly lit up. A video was projected, abruptly interrupting the solemn atmosphere of the auction. It was a leaked video, A recording believed to be authentic of Kyle Thorne's death. My heart tightened. I stared at the screen, each image like a needle piercing my eyes. Kyle. He was there. In an abandoned industrial area, amidst explosions and fire. The image of him falling, engulfed by the blinding light of the explosion. I had witnessed that scene. I had believed he was dead. Everyone in the room stirred. Eli stood beside me. He placed a hand lightly on my elbow, as if to reassure me. But I didn't need reassurance. I needed the truth. I activated my visual memory. Every frame, every smallest detail, was perfectly stored in my brain. I replayed the video in my mind, slowly, second by second, moment by moment. Suddenly, I noticed a discrepancy. A small frame, just 0. 2 seconds. Difficult to discern with the naked eye, but to me, it was as clear as a scar on a silk fabric. The moment the light flashed from the explosion, there was a very slight interruption, a color change, an unnecessary delay. It was a deep fake. An advanced video editing technique using AI to create perfectly fabricated images. Kyle wasn't dead. He was alive. A chaotic feeling surged within me. Anger, joy, fear, all intertwined. He had let me believe he was dead, let me live in sorrow, let me build a new life without him. But he was alive, and he was sending me signals. Meanwhile, the auction's background music resumed. This time, it was a classical piano piece, melodious. And then, I heard it. 3 musical notes. C, G, C. They repeated, not randomly, but skillfully woven into the melody, like a whisper in the dark. Repeating. That was it. Kael's signal. He was somewhere. He was sending me a signal. He was telling me he was alive. My eyes darted across the room, trying to search. Where was he? In the shadows. He was always in the shadows. Maya Blackwood, after finishing her speech, stepped down from the stage. Her gaze stopped at me, a cold, sharp smile on her lips. She approached, holding a glass of wine, like a queen of the underworld. The fire never dies if the heart still owes blood. She whispered, her voice like silk rubbing together, full of danger. You know, Ilara, some fires just wait to flare up again. And you look like an unextinguished flame. I clenched my hands, looking directly into her cold gray eyes. I owe no one blood. Maya sneered. Really? Or are you just trying to deny your legacy? She took a sip of wine. This world isn't as simple as your flowers, Ilara. It's a jungle where only the strongest survive. And you seem to be trying to get lost. I didn't respond. My eyes still scanned the room, searching for a familiar figure. Kyle, where are you? Suddenly, a flash of light. Above the banquet hall balcony, amidst the marble columns and dark velvet curtains, I saw a figure. A tall, broad-shouldered man, standing there in the shadows, only a part of his face illuminated by the light. He was looking down at me. Black hair, a figure hauntingly familiar. K.L. I couldn't breathe. My entire world suddenly froze. He stood there, a ghost from the past, a promise of the future, a secret I had buried deep. He was still alive. And he was watching me. But why? Why didn't he come closer? Why did he hide in the shadows, leaving only vague signals? Pain, anger, love, all exploded within me. I wanted to scream his name, to run to him, to pull him out of that darkness. But I couldn't. I knew it was a trap. He didn't want me involved. He wanted me to be free. But how could I be free when he was still imprisoned in that world? He was a trace in this light, a blurred figure in the crowd, and he had touched me again. Kael's shadow on the balcony, and the 3 mysterious musical notes, they spurred me on. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Kael was alive. It was a cruel truth, and at the same time a fragile glimmer of hope, illuminating the path ahead. I had to find out. I was no longer a victim. I would become a player. The very next day, I followed that piano piece, which I had perfectly memorized thanks to my auditory memory. It wasn't a popular piece, but the 3-note melody, repeating over and over, led me to an old archive of Thorncorp, the place where Kael used to hide his deepest secrets, where I once accidentally found pieces of his past. It was an old, dilapidated building, tucked away in a small alley, covered in moss and dust, completely unlike the glamour of Thorn Tower. I used the old magnetic card Kyle had given me. It still worked. The heavy metal door opened, revealing a large, damp space filled with old filing cabinets, outdated computers, and thousands of files. The smell of old paper, dust, and mildew assailed my nose, evoking a sad sense of nostalgia. This was where he used to work, to scheme, to hide the secrets of his life. I felt as if he was still here, in every speck of dust, in every cold breath of air. I started searching. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I trusted my instincts, trusted the signs Kael had left behind. I sifted through thousands of documents, thousands of images. My memory worked tirelessly, scanning every letter, every number. And then I found it. An old, unlabeled file. Inside was information about a mysterious charity fund. This fund appeared perfect on the surface, with transparent financial reports and widely publicized humanitarian projects. But as I dug deeper, I discovered something suspicious. Large sums of money, transferred regularly, to the same IP address as the Blackwood network Eli had mentioned. These transactions were not charity. It was money laundering. It was funding an underground organization. I was backing up data to my USB when Eli Ward appeared. He stood at the door, his eyes scrutinizing. I didn't know how long he had been watching me. He always appeared unexpectedly, like a ghost in the night. "You're going too far, Ilara," Eli said, his voice deep and warning. "This isn't a game. The people you're looking for, they will stop at nothing." I looked at him, a sense of suspicion rising within me. He seemed worried about me, but his eyes, I saw a concealment, a truth he didn't want me to know. "You know something, don't you, Eli? You know about this charity fund?" Eli moved closer, his eyes full of complexity. "I know what I need to know to protect you." "I don't need protection," I replied, my voice filled with anger and determination. "I need the truth. He's alive, Eli. Kael is alive. And you know it." Eli sighed, a bitter, wry smile on his lips. "You always find out what others want to hide, Ilara. But you have to understand, there are some truths you shouldn't know." He didn't deny it. He was confirming it. Kael was alive. A sense of relief, but also full of indignation, surged within me. I turned my back to him, continuing my search. I needed more evidence. I needed an explanation from Kael. In an encrypted file, very carefully hidden, I found an audio recording. Kael's voice. A deep, powerful voice, yet also containing the weariness I had once loved. "If you hear this, it means I'm not dead. But don't look for me, or we will both die." My heart felt squeezed. Don't look for me. How could I not look for him? He had let me live in pain, and now he was telling me not to look for him. His voice trembled, full of despair. "I knew you would find out. You're always smarter than I thought. But this time, this isn't just my game anymore, Ilara. This is a war against an entire council of shadows, an invisible network of power. I sacrificed myself as bait. I'm faking my death to break this entire network, from the roots. And the one behind it, he's more powerful than anyone you've ever known. He is the patron." The patron. That name echoed in my head. Kyle was alive, but he was turning himself into bait. He was using his own life to destroy a force even more terrifying than Blackwood. And he didn't want me involved. But I couldn't listen to him. How could I ignore this truth now that I knew it? How could I sit idly by when he was putting himself in danger? Moreover, Maya Blackwood's words, Eli Ward's words, all pointed to someone behind it all. The patron. Who was he? I made a decision. I couldn't be the bird in the golden cage anymore, waiting for Kale to save me. I had to act myself. I had to find the patron. I used my superhuman memory, tracing the fragmented pieces Kale had left in the audio recording, in the encrypted files. The smallest clues, seemingly meaningless keywords, were all strung together by me. And then I discovered a horrifying truth. The patron, he wasn't just the one behind Blackwood. He was the one who had funded the hospital where my parents died. The explosion years ago was not an accident. It was an assassination. And he was the one who signed the order for their elimination. My entire world seemed to collapse. My parents, their deaths were not fate, not the karma of the Vance family. It was a conspiracy, a cruel plan by an invisible enemy. Kael had saved me from Blackwood, but he couldn't save me from the patron. And now, the patron was targeting me, targeting my new family. I sank to the cold floor of the archive, clutching my head, horrifying memories flooding back. The explosion, the smoke and fire, my parents' screams, all vividly clear. Tears streamed down my face, soaking my fingers. I was no longer a victim. I had become a player, and I would fight. For my parents, for Kai, and for Kael. A small sound. I looked up. I heard a soft rustle, very faint, like a whisper of wind. I turned to Kai's old teddy bear, which I had accidentally brought with me when I rushed out of the house. It was a toy Kael had given to the boy. I stared at the bear's black plastic eyes. There was a small light blinking, very faintly, almost invisible. A camera. A hidden camera. The enemy was watching Kai. The enemy knew about the boy. The patron. The blood in my veins froze. He wasn't just targeting me. He was targeting my son. I clutched the teddy bear tightly, an extreme rage surging within me. This game of shadows had reached my limit. I would not let anyone touch Kai. The information about the hidden camera in Kai's teddy bear awakened my maternal instincts, stronger than any fear. I knew I couldn't hesitate any longer. The patron had crossed the line. He had touched Kai. I had to find Kael. He was the only one who could help me confront this invisible force. I used the clues Kael had hidden in the encrypted files, coordinates subtly encoded, only decipherable by Thorne's unique algorithm. They led me to an abandoned port on the outskirts of the city, a place covered in rust and shadows. Rain began to fall lightly, casting a hazy mist over the old ships and stacks of containers like giant stone blocks. The salty smell of the sea, mixed with oil and mildew, assailed my nose, evoking a chilling sensation to the bone. I walked through narrow alleys, squeezing past old containers, my footsteps echoing in the silent space. I found a hidden basement beneath one of the dilapidated warehouses. The heavy, rusty iron door was ajar. Inside was another world. The space inside the basement was dark and damp, illuminated only by a few dim lights. I descended the cold stone steps, feeling my heart pound in my chest. The smell of leather, tobacco, and cedar. Kael's hauntingly familiar scent. It assailed my nose, making me gasp. And then I saw him. Kael. He was standing there, leaning against an old steel table, holding a glass of whiskey, his eyes looking straight at me in the darkness. Tall, broad-shouldered, his black hair still slightly wet, his face marked with new scars, traces of a battle. He was thinner, his eyes deeper, but that gaze, it was still Kyle's gaze. Cold, distant, yet containing a deep sadness I was all too familiar with. My whole body trembled. Thousands of questions, thousands of reproaches, thousands of longings surged within me. I wanted to run to him, to hug him, to hit him for letting me suffer, to ask why he did it. But I just stood there, motionless. You came. Cale's deep voice resonated in the quiet space of the basement. It was no longer the powerful tone of the underworld boss, but a tired voice, full of acceptance. I told you not to look for me. Tears streamed down my face, unable to be held back any longer. Why? Why did you let me believe you were dead? Why did you leave me alone, with our son? Cale put down his glass, slowly approaching me. He still maintained a certain distance, like an invisible wall between us. I had to, Elara. It was the only way I could destroy the entire Council of Shadows. I survived that explosion, but I realized that if I remained publicly alive, neither you nor Kai would ever be safe. I secretly cooperated with a part of the government, those who believed in the truth, to break this network from its roots. Secret cooperation? I repeated, my voice full of skepticism. Kael Thorne cooperating with the government? How much have you changed? He stopped, looking directly into my eyes. I didn't want you involved. I once imprisoned you in my golden cage. Now I want you to be free. Free from these shadows, from these wars, from my Thorn name. My heart ached. What freedom is there when the killer of my parents is still alive? What freedom is there when he is watching our son? I clenched my hands, looking at him with angry eyes. Do you think you can handle everything yourself? Do you think you can bear all the burdens of your family, of this world, without me? Cale sighed, a bitter smile on his lips. Elara, you don't understand. I've done too many wrong things. I pushed you into this world. I imprisoned you. I want to atone. Atonement for what I did to you, and to my parents. Atonement by turning yourself into bait? I asked, my voice filled with extreme anguish. Do you think that would make me happy? Do you think I could live in peace while you're putting yourself in danger? Cale moved even closer, the distance between us gradually shortening. I could feel the warmth from his body, his familiar scent. It made me want to push him away and hug him tightly at the same time. I had no other choice, he said, his voice trembling slightly. The patron, he's too powerful. He controls everything from the shadows. I have to lure him out. Anguish, love, anger, all intertwined, creating a storm of emotions within me. I raised my hand, touching his face, feeling the rough scars under my fingertips. What had he endured? What had he survived? Kael gently closed his eyes, feeling my light touch. He tilted his head, placing his lips on mine. His kiss was as passionate as ever, but now it also contained despair, a pain. It was not just a kiss of love, but also a kiss of farewell, of sacrifice. I returned his kiss with everything I had, with all the longing, the resentment, the love I had hidden for so long. In his arms, I felt the warmth, the protection I had lost. But at the same time, I also felt the danger, the darkness that always clung to him. He was still Cale Thorne, the underworld boss, a man of the shadows. But he was also the man I loved, the man I wanted to be free. After the kiss, we separated, but still held each other in our arms. I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling his steady breath. You sacrificed yourself as bait to lure the patron out, I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. He's not just the one who killed my parents, but also the one behind everything. You have to let me help you. Cale tightened his arms around me. I don't want you involved, Elara. You have Kai. You have another life. Without you, I have no life at all, Cale. I looked up, meeting his eyes. We are one. We will face this together. We will protect Kai together. He looked at me, his eyes full of complexity, between objection and acceptance. I don't want you to suffer anymore. I'm not suffering. I'm fighting, I said, my voice full of determination. For our love, for Kai, and for the truth. Suddenly, Khalil's phone rang, interrupting our quiet moment. He pulled the phone from his jacket pocket, looking at the screen. His face suddenly changed color. I looked at him, feeling a sense of unease. What is it? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Kyle handed me the phone. On the screen was a message. A photo. A photo of Kai. The boy was sleeping soundly in his crib, but behind him was a faint, dark shadow. And below the photo was a cold, sharp line of text. Choose the man you love or the child you bore. My heart seemed to stop. My entire world suddenly collapsed. Kai had been kidnapped. The patron had carried out his threat. He had taken my son. I collapsed, my trembling hands covering my face. No, it couldn't be. Kyle hugged me, tightly. I felt an extreme anger surging through his body. He will pay, Kyle growled, his voice containing a cold, terrifying rage unlike anything I had ever heard. He has crossed our limit, Elara. Now he will face the wrath of Thorn. I looked up at him, my heart filled only with hatred and determination. We will find Kai. At all costs. That cold message, choose the man you love or the child you bore, had transformed fear into a fierce fire of hatred within me. It was no longer simple love, no longer a desire for personal freedom. Now, everything revolved around Kai, the only light of my life, the child I had exchanged everything for. Kyle and I, we had no choice but to embark on this final pursuit. It was no longer a game, but a battle for life and death. Kyle used every connection, every secret resource he still controlled. He traced the signal from the message, followed every smallest clue my memory provided, combining it with his network. We were together, not as a boss and a bird in a cage, but as two companions, two hearts beating as one, with one goal. His eyes were filled with coldness, with determination, but I knew, deep within him, was an extreme fear for Kai, and for me. He had lost too much, and he would not lose us. The signal led us to an abandoned church on the outskirts of the city. A desolate, ruined place, hidden behind ancient trees. A symbol of a rotten past, a place Kale once told me he was baptized as a child. Now, it had become the patron's hideout, where sin would be washed with blood. When we arrived, night had fallen, casting a thick mist over the gloomy scene. The church bells had long ceased to chime, but I still felt a heaviness, a gloom pervading the air. Kyle walked ahead, still bearing wounds from the underground battle, from the confrontations he had endured during his faked death. He walked with a limp, but his eyes were still sharp, full of determination. When we broke in, the church interior appeared before me like a nightmare. A ruined altar, shattered saint statues, flickering candlelight casting shadows on dried bloodstains on the stone floor. And in the middle of the room, on a high platform, was an iron cage. Inside was Kai. The boy was sleeping soundly, unaware of what was happening around him. The patron stood there. He was an elderly man, impeccably dressed, with a benevolent appearance, but his eyes held a terrifying cruelty. He looked at us, a sneer on his lips. "Oh, the lovebirds have arrived. Have they?" I knew Cale Thorne couldn't bear to see his toy touched. "And you, Elara? I underestimated your resilience." "How interesting." Cale growled. He lunged towards the patron, but his wounds slowed him down. The patron had subordinates, armed mercenaries. A chaotic battle erupted in the gloomy space of the church. Gunshots rang out, metal clanged, screams, all intertwined, creating a symphony of death. I also joined the fight. I didn't have Kael's fighting skills, but I had the determination, the rage of a mother. I used my superhuman memory to observe, to find the enemy's weaknesses. I helped Kale by pointing out blind spots, openings he could exploit. He fought like a wounded animal, relentlessly, fearlessly. Blood streamed from the wound on his shoulder, but he didn't flinch. He had only one goal: to save Kai. In the chaos, the patron tried to escape, dragging Kai's cage with him. Kale lunged, blocking his path. The two faced each other. "You killed my parents!" I screamed, my voice hoarse with hatred. "You ordered the bombing of the hospital years ago. You wanted to destroy both the Thorne and Vance families." The patron sneered, his eyes full of contempt. Indeed, those two families were rotten, corrupted. They needed to be purified with blood. I am merely an executor of a mission. He pulled out a gun, aiming it straight at Kyle. And now, you too will be purified. Kyle, with his last ounce of strength, dodged the bullet, then lunged at the patron. He and the patron wrestled. A gunshot rang out. I didn't know who fired, who was hit. But then, the patron fell. His gun clattered on the stone floor. Kyle had killed him. He had saved Kai. He had destroyed the last enemy. I ran to Kyle. He was holding Kai, the boy still sleeping soundly. But he was bleeding. A fatal bullet wound was lodged in his chest. He had been shot. "Kyle!" I screamed, hugging him. His blood soaked his white shirt, spreading in large patches. His breath was weak, one ragged gasp after another. I tried to stop the bleeding, but all efforts were in vain. He looked at me, his eyes still as tender as ever, but now they held acceptance, peace. He raised a hand, gently stroked my hair, then touched Kai's face. The boy suddenly woke up, looking at his father with sleepy eyes. "I once imprisoned you," Kyle whispered, his voice so weak I had to lean close to hear him. "But it was you who kept me in the light. Ilara, you are my light." "You? And Kai?" He said something else, but his voice faded completely. His breath stopped. His hand went limp. I hugged him, holding his cold body, sobbing uncontrollably. The dim light from the window streamed down, like weak rays of a baptism, illuminating his body, illuminating my tears. Kael was gone. He had sacrificed everything to save us, to bring freedom to me, to Kai. He had atoned for his mistakes, for the sins of his family. Everything had changed. The underworld had been partially broken. The Council of Shadows had been eradicated. And I was no longer the weak, fleeing woman. I stood on a large stage at an international conference on humanitarian reconstruction. I had used everything I learned from Kael, from this battle, to create a real charity fund, to help victims of crime, to bring light to lives in the dark. I looked down at the audience, at the attentive faces listening. I took the microphone, taking a deep breath. Freedom is not the absence of darkness. I began my speech, my voice deep, full of confidence, but daring to step into it, carrying your own light. Kael taught me that. He sacrificed himself to bring freedom to me, to Kai, and I will carry his light to illuminate the darkest corners of this world, so that no one has to endure what we endured. So that children like Kai can grow up in a better world where love and justice always triumph. I finished my speech, receiving thunderous applause. I had found my freedom, not by running away, but by confronting the darkness, by carrying Kyle's light. In a secure room, where the cold light of computer screens illuminated stern faces, Agent Eli Ward sat there, with his familiar sunglasses, his eyes still as unreadable as ever. He opened an audio file on the computer. The file title was Project Thorne, Phase 3, Resurrection. Kael's voice echoed in the room. "If you hear this, it means my plan has succeeded. Ilara, I have destroyed the patron, but I cannot return immediately. There will be a Phase 3, a bigger, deeper plan. I will return. There will be a time when I return. Trust me. The recording ended. Eli Ward smirked, a mysterious smile. Kael might still be alive.